I stared at the DNA results on my phone, my thumb frozen above the screen while chaos and laughter swirled around me. My wife lied to me. My little girl, my Lily, might not even be mine. The thought landed like a punch to the gut, so sharp, it left me breathless. My name is David. I'm 37 years old, a software engineer who's always been better with machines than people. I've been married to Sarah for 8 years, and until an hour ago, I thought my life was built on trust. I'm standing in our living room, surrounded by family, a half-deflated pink balloon brushing against my arm as if mocking my attempt to hold things together. Sarah, radiant as ever in a sky-blue dress, slices the birthday cake for our daughter's 4th birthday. Her laughter rings out, high, bright, easy. It's a sound I used to think meant everything was okay. Now it feels like static in my ears. My mother-in-law calls the kids to the table, and Lily, tiny, beaming with frosting, already on her nose, climbs into my lap shouting, "Daddy, help me blow out the candles." I squeeze her gently, numb, unsure if the warmth I feel is love or loss or both. I always thought fatherhood was simple. Show up, be kind, love your child. But with that digital test result burning a hole in my pocket, I'm not sure what's true anymore. Across the room, Mark raises a glass to me, my best friend, always quick with a joke, completely unaware that I'm unraveling. I try to smile back, but my lips barely move. I feel as if I'm underwater, every sound muffled, every color too bright, too unreal. Sarah wipes a streak of pink icing from Lily's cheek, her hand shaking just enough for me to notice. The spot of icing on Lily's chin is bright and jarring, a smear on what should have been a perfect scene. The whole room feels like a photograph someone tried to erase and failed. The unopened envelope with the DNA results, now just a PDF on my phone, sits in my hand like a live wire. I haven't told anyone. Not even Mark. Not yet. I force myself to move, to breathe, to keep up the act. "Don't let them see you break," I whisper, barely audible, before Lily tugs me closer for the birthday song. The candles flicker, and everyone starts to sing. I step away just for a moment, slipping into the hallway as the door closes behind me. The chorus of "Happy Birthday" echoes from the other side, a thin wooden barrier between the life I thought I had and the truth I can never unsee. In that narrow, silent space, I realize this isn't just Lily's birthday party. It's the funeral for the life I thought was mine. Before all of this, before suspicion hollowed out my chest, my life looked like something I'd once dreamed about. Our Sundays began with sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, Sarah humming softly as she flipped pancakes, Lily drawing crayon masterpieces on the fridge. There was always coffee brewing, the steady drip anchoring me to the moment. I thought happiness was quiet, something you built over time with enough patience and love. Sarah and I met in college. She was the one with a wild laugh, the kind of person who made friends in elevators, who remembered everyone's birthday. I was more reserved, the guy who fixed her computer and watched from the edge of the crowd. Somehow she chose me. She'd rest her head on my shoulder and whisper, "You're the only man I could ever trust." Back then I believed her. Thukir. Day Lily was born is still the brightest in my memory. I remember holding her, impossibly small, wrapped in a yellow blanket Sarah's mother had knitted. I cried, big, helpless tears, because I'd never felt so responsible for anything in my life. I promised, right there, that I would always protect her no matter what. In those days, I believed being a good father was a simple thing. You show up, you care, you stay. We made a home in the suburbs, a faded blue house with squeaky steps, and a swing set that Mark and I built one summer afternoon, laughing when we realized neither of us had read the instructions. Mark was always there for me, more brother than friend. He had this way of raising one eyebrow when something seemed off, but he never pushed too hard. He just watched out for me. There were rituals, Friday night movies with popcorn, morning walks to the park, Sarah's ritual of tucking Lily in with a silly song she made up herself. These little things knitted us together. Or so I thought. Looking back, I can see the tiny fissures that were already forming. The late nights Sarah worked overtime, the new perfume she never wore for me, the half smiles that didn't reach her eyes. I told myself it was just stress. Everyone has hard years. I ignored the texts she shielded from my view, the trips that suddenly had last-minute changes. Mark noticed even if I didn't want to admit it. One night after a barbecue, he leaned over the fence and asked, "You okay, Dave? You've seemed tired." I shrugged him off. I had no words for the strange ache blooming in my chest. The moment that sticks with me is from last spring. Lily wanted to ride her bike without training wheels. I remember Sarah standing in the driveway, biting her lip with worry while I jogged, behind Lily, hands ready to catch her. Lily wobbled and crashed and laughed, skinning her knee, but she looked up at me and said, "You're my hero, Daddy." It was the best kind of ache. Now that memory burns. What if the hero she saw wasn't even hers? What if all my effort, my loyalty, my love, were just the background noise to a lie? On a night that seemed ordinary, Sarah touched my arm and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I remember the softness in her eyes, how I believed every word. Now in the harsh light of what I know, those words echo cruelly. Did she mean them? Or was she just keeping me close? I keep a photo from our first vacation, Sarah, Lily, and me at the beach. It's bent at the corners now, faded, almost like a relic. I carry it in my wallet, but lately I wonder if it belongs there at all. Some nights I lie awake, turning over every detail, asking myself, was anything I built even real? A year before the birthday party, the cracks began to show in ways I couldn't ignore. It started with Sarah changing her phone password, a minor thing but new. She brushed it off. "Work's tightening up security," she said, not meeting my eyes. But soon it was everything. Her phone face down at dinner, hushed late-night calls in the hallway, laughter drifting from behind the bathroom door. At first, I forced myself to trust her, reminding myself of all the years we'd built together. But trust, once it's questioned, unravels quietly in the background of everything. I became a watcher in my own home. I noticed the new perfume, the silk scarf she never wore for me, the flurry of texts that ended when I entered the room. She was distracted, impatient. Her warmth faded to politeness. Our conversations became transactional. Lily's school projects, bills, groceries. The love in her eyes had dimmed, but I convinced myself it was just stress, a rough patch. Lily, in her innocence, was my anchor. She would climb into my lap as I read emails and ask for rocket rides around the living room. I told myself that as long as she was happy, as long as our routines held, things would steady themselves. But even the routines began to change. Sarah volunteered for more work trips, sometimes last minute. Always with an edge of excitement she never tried to hide. When she returned, she brought back gifts for Lily and silence for me. One afternoon at pickup, Lily's teacher, Ms. Ramirez, a gentle woman with sharp eyes, smiled and said, "She looks just like her mom." She paused, looked at me, then quickly added, "She has your kindness, though." The comment should have bounced off, but it lingered, a splinter I couldn't dig out. That night I tried to reach for Sarah in bed, but she turned away, feigning sleep. I stared at the ceiling, hearing the faint hum of her phone vibrating in the kitchen. The loneliness was a weight pressing into my ribs. Mark became my sounding board, even if he didn't know it. He'd invite me over for poker nights, crack, open a beer, and tell stories about his own failed marriage. One night he studied me and asked, "You sure you're okay?" I lied, said work was busy, that I was tired. He just nodded, his eyes saying he didn't believe me. The evidence stacked up in small, relentless ways. A mysterious charge for a hotel on Sarah's credit card, a trip that was supposed to be a training seminar in another city. When I asked her about it, she smiled, too quickly, and said, "You're overthinking, honey. Trust me." The words echoed in my head for days. Eventually, I started a private journal on my laptop. I called it Things That Don't Add Up. Every time something felt wrong, a date, a lie, a look, I wrote it down. I scrolled through old photos, looking for differences, for clues. Even the living room betrayed me. Our family portraits, once perfectly straight, now had one frame tilted off-kilter like our life. The worst moment came when Mark, ever the loyal friend, pulled me aside after a weekend barbecue. He lowered his voice and said, "I saw Sarah out last Thursday. She wasn't alone, Dave." My stomach dropped. He described a man, a stranger, tall, sharp suit, hand on Sarah's back as they left a restaurant. Mark didn't push further. He just looked at me, apologetic, and clapped a hand on my shoulder. That night I went home and stared at Sarah while she scrolled through her phone. My mind buzzed with questions I didn't dare ask. Later, when she fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, the blue light from my laptop painting my face in shadow. My hands trembled as I Googled DNA test kit. It felt like a betrayal, but not as deep as what I feared she'd done to me. I ordered the kit, pressed confirm, and as I closed the laptop, I realized I was crossing a line, one that would split my life into before and after. The day before Lily's birthday party, I got the email I'd been dreading. The subject line was innocuous. "Your DNA results are ready." But my hand shook as I clicked it open in my car, parked on a side street where no one would see. Numbers, percentages, terms I barely understood, all adding up to a simple, silent truth. I wasn't Lily's biological father. The words stared back at me in harsh black type, stripping years from my life in a single glance. Shock is a strange thing. It doesn't shout. It settles in quietly, an invisible fog that dulls every color, every sound. I sat there for what felt like hours. Phone clenched in my hand as kids biked past and a dog barked somewhere down the street. I thought about the day Lily was born, how I'd cradled her tiny body, feeling like my whole world had just been handed to me. I remembered Sarah's tired, triumphant smile as she pressed Lily to her chest and whispered, "Look at what we made." When I finally started the car and drove home, I felt like an actor in someone else's life. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming, icing cupcakes. She looked up and smiled, and for a moment, I wondered if she could see it in my eyes. What I now knew. I went upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, and cried without making a sound. The pain wasn't loud. It was deep, spreading quietly through everything I thought I was. That night I lay beside Sarah in the dark, listening to her breathe, replaying every memory I had of our family. The good ones hurt the most. Lily's first words, Sarah's, laughter echoing through the house those evenings when I thought we were unbreakable. Each memory felt poisoned now, like I'd been living in someone else's dream. The next morning, the house was buzzing with party prep. Balloons floated in the living room, and Sarah braided Lily's hair, her fingers nimble, her face peaceful. I watched from the doorway, silent tears slipping down my cheeks. The sun sliced through the curtains, splitting the room in two, light on their faces, shadow wrapped around me. I found an old family photo on my phone. The three of us at the Mayo Park, Lily on my shoulders, all of us grinning like fools. Without thinking, I deleted it. The erasure felt final, like letting go of something sacred. When Sarah came into the kitchen, I couldn't hold it in any longer. My voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" She froze, her back to me, hands gripping the edge of the sink. Her voice, when it came, was so small, I almost missed it. "I thought I could protect you. Protect us." I swallowed the anger, the hurt, the urge to shout. Instead, I just said, "Some things can't be protected with lies." Sarah's shoulders shook as she started to cry, silent, shaking sobs that filled the room with grief. I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. I walked out, leaving her alone in the kitchen, the cupcakes untouched on the counter. In that moment, I realized betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet end to a life you thought was yours. The pain didn't fade, it settled deep and cold into something sharper, resolve. I wasn't going to lose myself to anger. Rage only makes you reckless. I wanted dignity, not destruction. For Lily's sake, for my own, I had to do this quietly, smartly. No public scenes, no shouting. I wanted the truth to stand on its own, without a spectacle. I started by gathering every piece of evidence I could. Old text messages, emails Sarah had sent late at night, bank statements with hotel charges and unexplained withdrawals. I copied everything to a flash drive, labeling the folder for attorney only. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But this was my life, my family, breaking apart line by line. Mark was the first person I confided in. He listened, without interruption, nodding slowly as I spoke. When I finished, he simply said, "You're doing the right thing. If you need a place, I've got a spare room." No questions asked. His loyalty steadied me. It reminded me I wasn't as alone as I felt. I set up a meeting with a family lawyer, Ms. Patel. She was calm, direct, the sort of person whose eyes made you feel seen but never judged. Sitting across from her, I felt both exposed and relieved. I told her everything, from the DNA results to the smallest doubts. She took notes, pausing only to ask questions that cut straight to the point. "You'll want documentation," she said, "as much as you can get. This isn't just about divorce, it's about custody, about Lily's well-being, and about protecting yourself." Her words grounded me. My plan began to take shape, not revenge for its own sake, but for truth and protection. I stayed cool at home, acting normal, making sure Sarah didn't suspect how much I knew. I rehearsed my lines, kept my routine steady. It was the hardest acting job of my life. The night before the party, I stood out on the porch, the cold biting, through my shirt. I took off my wedding ring, slid it from my finger, rolled it between my palms, and let it drop into my pocket. It was a silent ritual, a way of saying goodbye to the man I used to be. Above me, the sky was wide and cloudless, indifferent to what happened in our little house. Back inside, I wrote a letter to Lily. I poured everything I could never say aloud into those pages. That she was always my daughter, that love isn't written in blood, that whatever came next wasn't her fault. I sealed the letter and hid it deep in my desk drawer to be opened when she was old enough to understand. There was a moment, late that night, when I almost confronted Sarah in front of Lily. I could feel the words rising, hot and dangerous. But Ms. Patel's advice echoed in my head. Do this for you, not against her. I bit my tongue and waited. There would be a time for truth. The final piece was the birthday party. I knew it would be the breaking point, the moment I would let the truth breathe in daylight, no more secrets, no more pretending. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing every word I would say. My voice would be steady, my reasons clear. I owed myself and Lily nothing less. The morning of Lily's birthday dawned bright and brittle, the kind of day that looks perfect if you don't know better. I moved through the rituals, hanging streamers, setting up the folding chairs, making small talk with relatives almost on autopilot. Every smile felt tight, every laugh rehearsed. The house filled with voices and color, the air thick with the sweet scent of frosting and anticipation. Beneath it all, my secret pulsed like a bruise. Sarah moved through the crowd, making everything look easy. Her hair curled perfectly, her dress ironed crisp, her smile set in place. She glanced at me a few times, searching my face for something. Relief, maybe, or forgiveness. I gave her nothing. Mark arrived early, gripping my shoulder, with a squeeze that said more than any words. "You got this," he whispered, eyes serious. When it was time for the thank you speech, my heart began pounding so hard, I thought someone would hear it. I lifted Lily into my arms. She giggled, clinging to me, her party dress crinkling against my shirt. I looked around the room at faces I'd known for years, some family, some just along for the ride, all of them about to witness the end of our story. I cleared my throat, and the room hushed. I thanked everyone for coming, for loving Lily, for supporting our family. I could hear the tremor in my own voice, but pressed on, steadying myself with the weight of Lily in my arms. Then I turned to Sarah. "Thank you for giving me Lily," I said, my eyes on hers. "But today I learned the truth, one we both knew. I may not be her father by blood, but I am in every way that matters. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. For a heartbeat, the room froze, like someone pressed pause on the world. Then the reactions began. Murmurs, gasps, a glass shattering on the kitchen floor. Sarah's face crumpled, tears streaking her carefully done makeup as she spun and ran from the room. Lily looked up at me, confused, her small hand tightening around my finger. Mark moved to my side, silent but solid, a pillar against the shifting tide. Some relatives glared, some stood in stunned silence. My mother-in-law covered her mouth, shaking her head. The candles on the cake flickered, their flames pooling wax, tiny rivers tracing the end of innocence. I bent low and picked Lily up, holding her close so she wouldn't see the storm I'd unleashed. Her voice was small in my ear. "Daddy, why is Mommy crying?" I pressed my lips to her hair. "I love you, always," I whispered. "That's never going to change." I could feel everything breaking, but also, somewhere underneath, a strange kind of peace. The secret wasn't mine to bear anymore. The truth finally spoken had its own weight, its own cold mercy. I carried Lily outside, past the crowded hallway, into the fading evening light. The sky was streaked gold and violet, the world growing quiet. I watched as the last candle burned, down, the wax puddling in the center of the cake, a silent, messy symbol of all that had melted away. For the first time in months, I felt the air in my lungs clean and sharp. The storm was over. What came next, months have passed since that day, though sometimes it feels like only hours. The house is quieter now. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, close enough for Lily's visits, far enough for space to breathe. The routines are different, but they anchor me. Her laughter echoing off new walls, her drawings taped to my fridge. She adapts, somehow lighter than I ever was at her age. Therapy has helped. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone else off the hook. It's about loosening your own grip on pain. I stopped asking Sarah for answers she can't give. She tries, in her way, to repair the fragments, to make things right for Lily. Some wounds, I've realized, don't close all the way, but I'm learning to live with the scar, not hide from it. Mark still checks in, dinner every other Thursday, a reliable voice when I start to spiral. "You survived, Dave," he says. That's something. I hold on to that. On Lily's next birthday, I take her to the park. We plant a small tree, together, her hands sticky with dirt, her giggles lifting something inside me I thought was dead. "Why a tree?" she asks, brow furrowed. I tell her, because it grows, even after storms. Later, I give her the letter I wrote months ago, the one sealed and waiting in my desk. She can't read all the words yet, but she clutches it like a treasure. I tell her the truth in pieces, soft and simple. Family isn't always about blood, Lily. It's about who stays, who loves, who shows up. As she runs off, hair flying, I watch her disappear into the green and sunlight. I feel the ache, but also pride. Quiet, sturdy, the kind that can't be taken. The tree stands between us, new and fragile, its roots digging in. I know healing won't erase the past, but as I kneel there, brushing earth from my hands, I realize I'm finally choosing something new. Not bitterness, not regret, but the steady work of growing again, and no. But at least now, it would be real.